Welcome to the Interview Podcast, the voice of InterCT. InterCT's aim is to help young athletes become excellent individuals through the vehicle of soccer. Love the game, love to learn, and love to compete at InterCT.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Interview Podcast. I am Aaron Mazzola. Joining me, I have Tom Robinson, and I also have Gene Smith here today. How's everybody doing?
Excellent.
Yeah, all good, man. All good.
Good. Excited to be back for another week here at the Interview. So we have a couple of interesting topics to touch on today, and we also have some questions and some, stuff that we need to address. But we can start off here with the weekend recap. I know that we had some success. We had some teams over in Chelsea Piers, some teams, I think we were all around the state basically this past weekend. Gene, how about you start us off here?
So we were up in Oakwood. So I think, in rainy, cold, awful conditions in Oakwood, with some late games. But I think really the girls' regional teams played. So the 2012s and 2013s the regional groups played. They were fairly successful. 2012s unfortunately got their first loss of the year. But I think, talking to Pedro, who coached the game, said they did really well. The level of play was strong. They were just a bit unlucky. I think they started slow, and Oakwood kind of jumped all over them. The 2013 girls regional team grabbed their first win against Oakwood's top team. So 5-2 win, pretty convincing. I thought they played incredibly well during that game, especially with the conditions. But really are starting to develop and show, based on from their first game to this game, they've really started to improve. And then our 2013 Norwalk RL team went down early, dug themselves into quite a hole, but showed a lot of character coming back. We made it a very interesting game at the end. So yeah, I think on the girls' side, we're seeing some success. We're seeing some development, which is the biggest piece of it. I just think we're starting to see some of the things that we work on in practice coming out in games. So that's a positive. That's where we want to be, and that's how we want to move forward into the future as well. Unfortunately, the other games for the girls were rained out all weekend, but yeah,
man.
Yeah, I think it's a good one while we have Gene on here, just to kind of give him a little bit of a round of applause on how well he's done with it. We did throw him in at the deep end. The first time I officially met Gene, we had a staff meeting. I was like, "Here, Gene, we are competing in the EDP Zone 1 Academy, and our girls' teams aren't as strong as our boys' teams, but, we're going to work with it." And I think by Gene's relationships that he's formed by only being with us since July, late July, by the time he actually got here, it's shown, that our girls can compete. They are doing well. They've had wins, close losses, competitive ties, all against what you would say are strong organizations inside the state: Oakwood, CFC, AC Connecticut, and then they're playing Chelsea Piers this weekend. So I do want to say, because it's always good when me and Aaron talk about it, but without a girls' representation on the podcast, I think it is great just to say, well done, Gene, for that. It's a difficult task she was thrown jumping in there, but also credit to those people that are also helping. Leon's a massive person who's helped with the girls program. Ashley as well. When she, I know she's now focusing a little bit more on the high school side, but she's still heavily involved. And also the union staff. Pedro is been a great help. He's always willing to jump in and help teams and cover games. So that's been a great advantage of us. And also Coach Stephen, who's obviously helping push some of those union kids to us, and also the guys up at Litchfield, because we do have a few of those girls come down and help us as well. So I think overall, running the Zone 1 Academy on the girls' side is much harder than what me and Aaron have to do on the boys' side, because I just look up there, coach my two teams, and I'm done. But on the girls, it's a lot more.
I think you hit the nail on the head too. I think it's a big credit to the club as a whole in terms of, not just Norwalk, but, you're talking, Milford, Shelton, and then Litchfield as well. And those you're right. Those coaches have been absolutely great. Steven's been great. Dwayne's been great. And I think the players are enjoying it. I think that's the biggest thing. I think when we talk about the club as a whole, and we talk about a club centric philosophy of trying to represent us well as a group. I think those regional programs certainly do that. I think, and again, I think all like, I know Steven's his 2013 black team is incredibly good. There's a lot of regional players on that team. And we had a great match against them. But I think you look at the girls' side, not just in Norwalk, but as a whole in the club. I mean, we're I don't want to say we're punching above our weight, but we're certainly competing with some of the the clubs that have been stalwarts in Connecticut for like a long time here.
100%.
Right. Yeah, kudos to you, Gene. And I think the first time I met Gene was after your 25-hour drive from Montana to.
I literally rolled in from Montana to camp. First time I met you, first time that Ashley. That was crazy.
After sleeping in your car for 3 nights.
It was, yeah.
Cool.
I was just looking for a shower at that point in time.
Yeah. Tom, how was your weekend?
Yeah, I think kind of similar to Gene. We were lucky. He was outside in the rain. We especially the younger teams. We just played inside at Chelsea Piers. It was a long day. My might have been the earliest kickoff I've ever had coaching in Connecticut. I had an 8:15 a.m. kickoff, but that did mean that we could do all the games back to back. So we were in U9, U10, U11, U12. We got all those games done. So that was the good thing about playing at Chelsea Piers. One, the rain doesn't affect us, so we were dry. That was good overall. The boys program, we had some decent results overall, some competitive games. I heard Coach Sean's team had a thrilling 7-7 game, which is interesting scorelines, right? It's very rarely it's 7-7 ties. It's usually one team or the other. So it's it's good to see. We had some good results over in the Union side. Litchfield are plugging away up there. They only have the one boys team, but yeah, I think overall, crazy to say that we're nearly halfway through the fall season, but I think it's been a good start to. It's been a good start to it, right? Once we get this weekend out of the way and we do Poughkeepsie, that is the halfway stage of the season of the fall. But yeah, I think overall, not to bore people with just how every individual team goes, because we have so many. We just registered 34 for Poughkeepsie. I think that'd take up the whole podcast. But I think overall it's a good start to the season. Those teams that struggled in the first games have started to get it together. Some teams that found the first games too easy are now starting to get some other challenges based on who we're playing. And this weekend, most of the younger boys are up at Oakwood. So that'll be a great challenge for us. I've only ever coached against Oakwood once before, because usually they put themselves in other leagues. But that's, again, the good thing of this Zone 1 Academy, that we can compete in there against these elite teams and see how we hang. I have no problem going up there and getting beat. I want to see how we test against other teams in the state, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something to be said. We've organized with the EDP this Zone 1 Academy, and we're a premier club. We're not, we don't have really the facilities or the heritage that someone like Oakwood or FSA does. But we're throwing ourselves in this league, thinking and wanting to compete with these programs, which is very important. So
yeah, I've sat on the sideline enough and watched my team win 7-0 and then think we've learned nothing from that. So I think it's just a different way to approach it. And ultimately, we're doing this to create good high school players, create good regional players, create good academy players. And we're not going to do that beating lower level travel teams, premier teams easily. So we need to give these guys a challenge. So
it very well may be a case of you're going to develop better players if we start losing and playing better teams. You can't win every game, and if we start playing better teams, and even if we do lose, that's ultimately there's something to be learned from that.
I think that's a really, really good point in terms of just when we're talking about developing players, right? You can win a game, right, and not do anything right. I've won games at like collegiate level where it didn't really go all that well. Like we didn't really play all that well. We got a little fortunate here, like lucky bounce here, and it worked out. But I think I'll go back to like the 2013 RL girls. Yeah, they lost to Oakwood 4-2, but I was really, really happy with some of the things that came out in the game. There were some really great moments, and we're talking about defending better. We defended better in that game. There's a couple condition goals that, just skips and things like that were just really difficult to deal with that we really haven't worked on yet. But I could point to a lot more successes than failures in that game. Yeah, overall, the result wasn't what we wanted it to be, but, picking out, okay, this is a success. Like, this is what we just did here. There's a lot more successes than failures in this game.
Right.
And I don't think we can always point to the result as like the overall, like, hey, this is what our standard is.
Yeah, just to tag onto that as well, not part really a recap, but for those families that are not fully aware, we have extended our partnership with VO, which is the camera company, and we've extended that to a 3-year relationship. We have also updated the software. So if some of you guys used to watch some of our old footage, it was very limited on what we could show. When now I was looking at it, and it's crazy because, again, I coach U9. But I'm looking at it going, wow, my team had 75% possession. I don't know actually how accurate that is at U9 because a lot of the time the ball is kind of in between transitions and phases and things. But it is a cool thing to have. And I think, one, it shows us, it's a learning tool. We have so many parents who reach out to me and other directors at the clubs like, how does my kid get better? Just go watch yourself. Watch yourself, figure out what you need to improve on, figure out, what was it your fault for the goal? Could you have scored more? And then think about how you can fix it. We're not doing this to belittle people and say, hey, you're terrible. We're doing this to help you, fix the problem when it actually matters, because it doesn't matter at U9 or U10 if you give up a goal or you miss an easy chance. It matters if you get to the high school level or you're down in Tampa at the USL Academy. And, if you've had that experience at U9, U10, it's hopefully going to set you up better. So just so families know, if you join the team, it allows us to provide more feedback because we can then tag your son or daughter in that clip. So say I have one of my kids and the body shape's wrong, so they end up miscontrolling the ball. I can tag that player in. I can then send that clip, and that clip would go directly to your email, and then you can watch it back. You can talk about it. You can also rewatch the whole game. But just give our coaches a little bit of time. Both the staff on this call have lots of teams. Aaron coaches 4, Gene might coach 20 by the end of the year. And trying to recap all the games and give meaningful feedback take a little bit of time. But there's nothing wrong with players going in there themselves and just watching it back and say, hey, I didn't receive on my back foot here. I didn't open up. I never got my eyes up. And they'll start to figure these little bits and bobs out. For me, I can't wait to use it just for a positional point of view. U9, it's like a swarm of bees at times. So just to kind of highlight and say, hey, my right midfielder needs to be here and whatnot. So yeah, credit to Leon and Marty for extending our partnership with them. I do believe we have the most VOs in the whole state of Connecticut.
Wow.
Based on how many we have. And obviously the bill we have to pay to VO. So it's a good software. And obviously as our coaches get more comfortable using it, it's going to be good. And we're going to try and prioritize the younger guys in the fall. And then in the spring, we kind of flip it and prioritize the high school guys. But we do have 15 cameras now, so there would be an opportunity where some teams will still get recorded during the spring. But I do think it's part of that, size of the club, what we're trying to do, learning, long-term development, where the VOs could help that and just make sure everyone's using it. Because there's nothing worse as a coach than evaluating a game and only 2 people watching it back. So, the more people who watch it back, the better. It's only going to make the coach want to do it more and provide better feedback if everyone's watching it and using it as a learning tool.
Yeah, let's definitely take advantage of that. And, there's so many new things you can do with these VO2s. Even just the connectivity is so much easier than the VO1s.
Quality pictures.
Yeah, what I'm going to try to do, Tom and Gene, is I'm going to try to edit the first half of the game, and then I'm going to leave it up to the parents and the players to focus on themselves and edit the second part of the game, the second half. Maybe that works, maybe that doesn't, but I think it's it's good, nice to have that little bit of interaction.
No, definitely. And just watching yourself back is just great. I've watched 2 or 3 of the goals back from my teams and been like, wow, that's brilliant. So only if you're a 9-10-year-old, it's only going to have the same effect, but also then more of a learning opportunity for the older ones.
Yeah, I love the piece too up in the corner with the positional, like it just tracks positions in the corner. Crazy. And so when you have players like, hey coach, I was wide. No, you weren't. See, it's right there. You're 15 yards away from the sideline. So it's
I think ultimately that's always what parents ask, right? They want good feedback.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's right there in black and white, as they say. So
Yep.
So I believe we can move on now. We've had some concerns, not some concerns, but
is the old horse trying to steal your position here?
I think Leon just joined us. He's coming.
Look at him. Look at him. He can't stay away.
I got FOMO. I could hear you all talking.
Had to be a part of it.
Going in.
Could not stay away.
But with this new turf now, we're all so excited to use this turf, and I know that parents are excited, and the younger brothers and sisters are all excited to use it. But I think some insight on maybe the best way for us coaches to how we use it, and also how the parents and younger siblings can use it. That would help everybody, I think.
Yeah, I think for right now, obviously it's not 100% complete, right? We can all agree the turf is done. The turf is amazing. It's lovely. The surrounding areas still need work, and obviously with the amount of rain we got the last few days, there's parts of the field that is not the field, the surrounding areas, what used to be the old running track, that's a little bit muddy. So what we do want to do, we do understand people like walking on the turf. We get that. But one of the reasons why we have the black turf around the outside of the field is so people can follow that to get to their sessions. We don't want kids walking directly through sessions. Few reasons. One, it's not very kind and polite to the coach that is delivering the session. It can be a disruption, but also it can also cause injury. If we have a U9 walk through the middle of a U14 session and they get trampled on or a soccer ball hits them, then it's pretty tricky as well, and kind of helps us that. So ideally, where possible, we would have people follow the black turf and just walk around to your sessions. A little bit different if you're that first session at 4:30, because some people get in there a little bit early. If you're there at 4:10, you'll be one of the first ones on the turf. But when you start getting to like the 6 o'clock sessions, the 5:30 sessions, the 7:30 sessions, when people are leaving and people are coming in, it does get a little bit crazy. So we do hope that you can follow that track around. And then as our groundskeeper keeps working on it, we're going to get the outside of the turf a little bit more, I don't know, it'll look better, but also it'll be more functionable for people on the outside. So then you don't even need to come on the turf. The turf will just be strictly coaches and players, and parents can watch from behind there and put their chairs down and sit down in those areas. We understand right now that no one wants to stand behind the barriers because that's currently mud. But as we kind of keep developing that, it'll change and we'll go from there.
I think there's a rumor going around that Gene's going to have a pop-up cafe in the.
I am. I'm also going to start selling soccer balls back to people. No, I think it's so exciting, right? Like to have a new facility, it's incredibly exciting. I've been part of college teams and club teams that have built new facilities, and I think it's always part of the excitement to just be like, oh, I got to be on this field. I got to be on the field. And we want people to be on the field and we want you to use it. However, there's certain things like you have to take pride in your facility, right? So it's everybody's job. It's not just one person's job or one coach's job or, just our job to make sure the facility stays nice for years to come. That starts now. It's, making sure you're taking your trash off the field, making sure like you try to collect your stuff. When you get onto your field, wherever your session is, make sure your bags aren't in the way. Just push them off back to the side. And these are things for players to start to learn in terms of professional standards, right? So I know, like, again, like I've had a great career as a player, but there's certain things that you can always start to teach, regardless of whether you're U8, to a U19. You can always be professional. And I think we exercise that when we go to games and we go to away games and things like that, when we line up bags and stuff like that. Same thing for training. Do what you do in training in games. If you start to make these habits right away, we're just going to benefit from it. And, that's true of the way we treat our facility and the way we treat other people's facilities. Like we want to treat our facility the same way we would treat other people's, and we wouldn't be real happy if some club came in and left trash all over our field and walked off. and then we had to pick it up. So we don't want to do that to our own field either. So, those are types of things that we need to do. Just walking around, like Tom said, walking around the black. I think when sessions are in progress, like just making sure, even if you're late, it's okay. Like you don't need to cut through somebody's session. Like just walk around. We understand like the early sessions are a little tough to get to sometimes, but walk around the black and just make sure you get to your session wherever it is on the field without like walking through the middle of somebody's session.
Yeah. No, thanks for the insight there. Yeah, I had a couple players last night walk through my session, which understandable. Maybe you don't realize something's going on and you just kind of walk through. But
you have the tough location though, right? On
the one right in front, right?
Right in the front of the club. That's the worst one. I have that Thursday. It's the same all the time.
Yeah. But it's understandable. But let's as a club, let's see if we can help out. Not just trying to stay out of the session, but like the garbage and all that stuff too, and soccer balls. I think Gene's selling a couple on eBay now. So
I am.
Gene, if you was with us when we used to have a lot more trees, you could retire. You wouldn't need that 401k meeting.
I'm telling you, as soon as I get the clubhouse cleaned out, put a barrel in there, I'm just gonna start collecting balls. You're gonna have to pay a fee to get them back. I'm not
like those found golf balls. You find them in the pond.
Exactly. Like I'm just gonna start reselling them back to people. Yeah, maybe it's not even your ball. Maybe you need a ball. Maybe you can get it cheap. Like there it is.
So we have Columbus Day next weekend. Well, I guess that's Monday, but we have our tournaments up in Poughkeepsie. The boys will be on Saturday, and the girls are going to be on Sunday. Tom, if you could just enlighten us with a little bit of more information, maybe on schedules or anything that as a veteran.
Yeah, so we're still a week closer because we briefly touched on this last week. We're still a week closer and we still don't have the schedule. I'll be shocked if we don't have it by like next Wednesday. So what we'll probably do with schedule is we won't put it on Sports Engine. Your directors will just email you the link directly and you can kind of manage it there, because in previous tournaments, schedules will change. So it's like, say the schedule changed Saturday night or Friday night. The coaches won't have enough time to go in and change it. But if everyone's just looking at the same schedule, it would be very helpful. We do have a few boys teams playing up a bracket, mainly because we have 3 teams at some age groups, and we don't want to go all the way to Poughkeepsie and have teams from Union play against 2 teams from Norwalk, and then we only have one other team, and we didn't really need to go to a tournament if we're going to play 2 inter teams up there. So some of our RL teams will be asked to play up in age group. I think the only one not playing up is the 2012 RL, just because I didn't want them playing 11v11 because it makes no sense. They're not going to gain anything from doing 11v11, 10 months before they need to do it. But it's usually U9, U11, U13 in the morning, and then 10, 12, 14s in the afternoon. And then I'll send out more information, and I'll share my email with Gene so he can send it out to the girls' side. But yeah, it's a fun club-centric based tournament. We registered 34 teams to be at it, which is a record high that we've ever had go there. So it'll be fun from that. We'll get to be able to see the Litchfield teams, the Union teams, see some of the coaches that we don't get to see as much. I'm looking forward to spending a little bit of time with Coach Joel. He was a personal friend of mine that we work with in Norwalk, but now I don't get to see as much of him when he's up at Union. So good to catch up with him. Always good to make fun of Coach Stephen and his man bag when he's coaching on the sideline. So always good to see some of those guys up there, but also kind of I got married in Poughkeepsie, so it's kind of like I'm now not the only one who has connections to the lovely town of Poughkeepsie. It's kind of a slight homecoming for Coach Gene as well.
It is, yeah. It's 2.5 years of Maris, so yeah.
Funny you say that
right
about
right
Joel.
in my backyard.
I spoke to Joel. He said he's dreading seeing you, Tom.
That's because I just destroyed Coach Joel in our NFL fantasy. No, he's not my best friend at the moment. So
funny. So
yeah, 30. What do we have? 34 total teams going now.
Yeah, 34 teams.
So it's a lot.
I think the biggest growth is on the girls' side there, Gene.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So more information will come. Will probably be communicated via email, but just know those are the times that you'll play, and hopefully by this, like we're recording this on Wednesday. Hopefully by next Wednesday, we'll have a schedule to you. I know they're working on it. but it does take a little bit of time to get everything together and finalized. So
can I just have a little plug? I've jumped in really just to plug something that we haven't done before, but we're certainly taking advantage of because we have the turf. And I don't know if you were around then, Aaron, but Tom, certainly when we was going to do our own tournament during the COVID days, we're going to revamp that or redo that because, as you know, the U8s, there isn't a bracket for the U8s in Poughkeepsie. So we're going to introduce the Inter-CT Open Cup. It's for anyone that's listening. And what we got 2017s to 2012s on the boys. And I think 2017s to 2014s on the girls, 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock. And we're just going to have a tournament. Anyone can register. We've got the Shelton teams. We're talking individual players now, and Milford and Norwalk players and Inter players that are doing pre-team and any other young players that are not going. And especially for some of the girls that want extra soccer on Saturday before the tournament Sunday, we're just going to put them in. There's going to be a boys tournament and a girls tournament. And you're going to be in teams of 7 and 4 teams of 7. We're going to have a round robin and we'll play for a cup. Although I have to say, last week, some of the children misunderstood what the wooden spoon meant. I had children that were in the championship crying because they wanted to play in the 3rd place, 4th placing because they thought the wooden spoon was better than what I want a wooden spoon. So yeah, I'll have to make it clear that the winners get trophies and not wooden spoons.
So are you running this event? Is this a scramble format?
What does that mean?
We're not. You're not registering as teams. You're registering like kind of just people coming, and then you're putting them into teams.
All right. Exactly. Yes.
Just wanted to make
And we'll do Tom. We might, like we did before, where we did the draw. And we get it out. Everyone's got a number, and we'll just do a draw, and we'll maybe make that live on YouTube or something.
We put so much effort into that tournament that we were supposed to do, where COVID just took it away from us. It was ridiculous, like jerseys, trophies.
Oh, that was
live
when
draft.
I just came in, and it was like a massive event. Everything, we had everything for it, right?
Oh, we had blue lines. We had 5v5.
Yeah, that's right.
Blue lines everywhere.
Yeah,
we had the barriers all set up.
It was crazy. And then the day before, COVID, bang, done. It was like, great.
Everyone's got COVID.
But
just a little plug there before I go.
Yeah, thanks, Leon. And while I have you here, Leon, I know you're a kit connoisseur.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the Pink October kits that we have? I'm conscious we only have 5 minutes left, but
yeah, I'll make it quick. Just something that as a club we've always supported. And this is a little nod to the parent coordinators and Annette, a parent liaison at interctfc.com. She's organizing with the parent coordinators. And again, this is a prime example of something an added value to the club that that the coordinators can provide that maybe the coaches can't always do, and also help to have something that is standard across the board. There's the opportunity for teams as a whole to go with pink socks. More often than not, the parent coordinator purchases 12 pairs, 14 pairs, 18 pairs. Everyone buys a pair for $10, $15, $20, and any profits that are made, we go to a charity with breast cancer awareness in mind. And there's also opportunities for people who have done headbands, wristbands that people wear, like captain's armbands, and they've put those on the socks, etc., if you haven't gone with the pink socks. But great opportunity. We're talking about the number of teams. If every team raises, say, $100, then all of a sudden there's $3,500 going towards charity there. Wow. And it's something that we would like to do.
Yeah, it's a great cause as well. And I think it looks pretty good. It's a nice little pop of color for October as well.
Yeah, all we ask is, we don't want any kit crimes of like 2 people wearing pink socks.
Right,
and the rest
it's got to be uniform.
Yes. But no, as you said, Tom, it's affected so many people. So
yeah, it's one that's close to mine. My mum had it, luckily came out the other side, and it's perfectly healthy now. So it's something that we would like to support, but also just in general, anyone suffering with any form of cancer or anything, it's bad enough. So, we just like to be able to give back, and just unfortunately the coaches, we just don't have enough time to manage that as well. So credit to Anat and her hard work with the parent coordinators. It's just something that if you guys can manage it, talk with the other families to make sure everyone matches, it's great, and we'll happily promote. And I remember a few years ago when it was on my team, I was running around with a pink headband on to support it as well. So, our coaches are definitely joining.
Last week,
if there's anything that we can help with, definitely let us know, and we're happy
since
to
we
help
have
chip in
Gene
towards a great
Smith
cause.
on, we've
Great.
decided to discuss
thanks,
our
Leon, for the
relationship
guest,
with the USL Academy, and also maybe hear from him with his experience as he's coached in the USLW. So let's start with Tom. Give us a little overview on the USL Academy and how we're kind of affiliated with it.
Yeah, so for those people that have been with us for a while, it's been like a 3-year journey. Before the 3 years, we'd never really, we knew we had clubs in the area who were part of it, and obviously that's where Hartford Athletic are. But then, as they started to look to grow and have feeder clubs and all those fun things, AC Connecticut, again, we talk about them quite a lot. Our friends up there, that they have a group of really good players, but unfortunately not strong enough for every age group to compete at this national level on their own. And that's where the relationship that Robin and Anthony Howard have, who were the kind of the two main guys at AC Connecticut, very, very good personal friends with Leon and Marty. And as we became into Connecticut, that friendship between them kind of evolved into a partnership of clubs. And that's where then we can now put the best players from Inter and the best players from AC, and we can go and compete. And so far, we've done really well with it. So kind of to go a quick fire through how it's developed. Year one, it was just U19s. We had quite a lot of kids in there. They did really well, and that was it. And then we grew off it, and then was thinking, okay, well, if we've got kids at U19 doing it, what's going to then, we don't want every year to start from scratch with new kids coming through who don't know each other. So then we started to try and do these pre-academy groups. So then we started to do kind of monthly practices, U10, U12, 14, 16. So then at least they'd play together a little bit, practice a little bit, and then they would move through. Off the back of the growth of the USL then started adding its Academy Cup in late March, early April kind of time. Lovely time to get away from Connecticut to go to South Florida, by the way. Lovely time. And then that was where they would do U13, U15, and U19. So then we started having to realize we've got to get these guys practicing more. So that's when we did the monthly sessions, and then random tournaments, Hershey Cup, Juventus, and then this Academy tournament down in Tampa, which we'll touch on more. But for me, my first time, the amazing experience. Unfortunately, I had to do 1 day less. I couldn't find a babysitter, and my wife wasn't open for me to take Declan to the tournament for the weekend. So obviously I had to miss the first day, but it was a great experience. And then this year we have added from U13 to U19 the ECRL league. So now they do weekly practices, Friday nights together, hand-selected kids from AC, hand-selected kids from Inter, and then they play weekly. At the moment, weekly is a stretch. It's kind of, we play once in September, once in October, once in November, twice in December, and then once we get into the spring, it's going to be twice a week. It's going to be like you play Inter games in the National League, and then you'll play ECRL games with like the USL on the other day. Main reason for that is it's a back-to-back kind of league, and we have to play U13 all the way through to U19, and it's difficult to get that many games in if we try to do it every single weekend. So with the Connecticut rule for high school kids that you can't play club, it made it a little bit difficult to make those guys play. So that's why we're going to play over the winter. But it just shows the growth, right? We went from basically one team to then random sessions here and there, to then now it's weekly sessions for those U13s and older, games weekly. We had our first game down in South Jersey 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. I can't, it's all turned into a blur, right? And they did well. The 2010s won 6-2. We had 13 players on the roster of 16. Shows how strong our 2010s are. But also, on the other hand, the 2011s were down there. They won 8-2, and we had one player on a roster of 16. So it just shows that we are trying to take the best players available. We're trying to make the best groups available. Obviously, rosters can change. We can register up to 40 kids for the year. So if performance drops or if position injuries away, we still obviously want kids to have a life away from soccer, and then we can compensate that. So I do have to give a big shout out. I know I say this a lot to Leon and Marty, though, because we fund this all ourselves. There's no any additional cost to these events. The USL side is fully funded by us and the very few USL-based programs that we run. So we run the USL Summer Select, which is obviously a little bit in the off-season where our stuff isn't as kind of team-based. So we do that to raise a little bit of money to help fund this. And also we have the USL Talent ID camp at SPU, which really is probably our best camp we run throughout the whole entire summer, just the information we get into them. And that's what helps funds this program. Anybody who gets selected for this, we don't say, hey, you've got to pay us an extra amount for tuition. This is just another pathway that allows kids to be identified, play at higher levels, test themselves, and something that we're proud to say that we fund as a club, because a lot of these other organizations are only playing in this ECRL league, and they are charging much more than we charge to be part of it, and we're also giving you a normal league as well. So some kids are very busy with multiple games of soccer on a weekend, but also some kids are just still doing the regional teams with Inter and still trying to grow. So that would be our overall kind of development of the 3-year journey on the boys side. And then now what we kind of do with the U10s and U12s is they're just going to do their monthly sessions and just jump in with a few tournaments, Hershey, Juventus, like we've done, knowing that when they get to U13, it's going to be insanely busy.
Right. Yeah. And also kudos to you, Tom. I know you do a lot with the USL, mostly behind the scenes too, but
the amount of paperwork, unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
I felt like I was dealing with FIFA. I'm not going to lie. And some of the families who know I'm talking about, obviously I can't drop names, but if you have a child who's not born in the US and they're selected to play on this, some of the things we have to do to get them to play I was apologizing to parents saying, listen, I need you to fill this form in. I need you to fill this in. I need you to, and there was like, are you like, not like in a mean way, but just like, are you serious? And it is just shows you the levels that we compete in. It's not just Connecticut soccer anymore, where all you've got to do is just show a birth certificate. But
professional organization,
very professional.
Yeah, you have to contact like the home league. So if it's internationally, so you have to get an international clearance. Then you have to go through.
I had to find out a kid's speaker number. I was like, where do I find? I was like, is this something I get off the PlayStation? Like, where do I get it? And then so now I have a better idea of it. But yeah, it's very good. It's like you don't see me that much on the field. I'm the one in the background, managing and organizing. But it's it's fun. And for me, from a personal point of view, these 2010s were the kids that I was coaching kind of 4 years ago at U9, and to see us having 13 kids out of 16 on that roster is great. And there's probably even 2 or 3 more that could get themselves on that roster as the season continues. Leon always has a pretty good saying where the roster that starts the season is never the same as it finishes. So, it does allow us to have movement and also keeps kids pushing each other. Ultimately, because of this, the level of the 2010 RL team is getting even better because everyone is wanting to be in that group. So.
Yeah, and it's a great thing to say. I mean, that competition, yes, you are still a team during the week and on the weekends, but you're always pushing to be selected for this USL pre-academy, especially if you're going to go to a bunch of good tournaments and play against a bunch of quality teams.
If you become one of the coaches for the U17s, I think you get 3 trips to Tampa and 1 trip to Texas, or
really?
Trips to Florida, shall we say? Unfortunately, if you become the U14 coach, you get a trip to Virginia in March, which will be cold, and also Juventus in November, which will also be cold. But
right,
I can see a few coaches fighting to be that U17 coach.
Well, I'll put my name in that hat and definitely, yeah, we'll see
Hey,
what happens.
you've got the win on you and Dave last year, right? Brought back
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
for
we
the 15s.
won with the U15s. It was, we fared pretty well in the first couple of games, but that FC Golden State, yeah, they were a quality side.
That was the final, right?
That was the final.
Yeah, they were
2-1. They equalized in basically the last kick of the game.
last kick of the game.
And then we went into overtime. It was 1-1, and then we scored in the second part of overtime. Great.
Yeah, well, that was all taking place down at Tampa, and someone who probably knows the USL better than myself and Aaron combined is Gene, and it's one of the main reasons for this conversation here, just to get insight from Gene, what he sees as the long-term goal of playing in that, what benefits they have, what experience he was able to help with other players. Is it obviously everyone knows the MLS, right? Everyone wants to do the MLS. They want to be in the draft. They want to go that way, but also, what does the USL?
There's a whole nother conversation to that side, but I think just focusing on the USL, I think the important thing to understand about the USL is the vertical professionally for American soccer, right? On the men's side, it's very, very developed. From USL 2 to League 1 to Championship, like we have our tiers of professional programs. The women's side is fairly new for the most part. So USLW came to be about, they started the conversations long before, but it really came in about 2-3 years ago. I was lucky enough to coach in the same division as one of the teams that won the inaugural USLW championship, and they were extremely good. So I came from a division that's always been competitive top to bottom, but there really hasn't been that on the women's side. There's no vertical for the women in the United States. You got to go from college, and college, either you're going to go to Europe or there was kind of nothing for you. And, the NWSL has been pretty successful of, keeping a league standard together. But women's soccer professionally has kind of it's been shaky for lack of a better word, for a long period of time. And I think the USL has done a really great job. USLW has really come along now with the USL Academy coming into play, especially for us on the women's side. It's all steps in the right direction. And the Super League, I believe, is forecasted to come in, I want to say not this summer, but the following summer. So that will be the league below the NWSL. It's really a professional league, and it will be the league below the NWSL. But we're starting to see the creation of the vertical for the women's game. And the USL Academy League, especially for the girls, is that first step in that process. It is not as developed as the boy. The boys side, they don't have the league play that the boys do yet, but they do have Tampa. So they do have the same tournament that the boys play in. I believe there's only 3 age divisions now. I think it's 13, 15, and 19. And, I know Sarah Brady is working very hard to look to expand that and work on, creating the same kind of model that the boys have in the future for clubs that are willing to do it. And for us, if, we're looking at inner, our regional teams, I think, are the first kind of step in the process for us to get to that point. We have a lot of good players in the regional program right now, for all the branches of our club, which we mentioned before. And I think, stepping forward, when we look at players going to Tampa, maybe for, the women's side, joining AC Connecticut in that aspect, we should be able to put a lot of players forward. So that's really a good thing. And again, it's a great starting point. And I'm glad it's, I was basically on the collective of coaches that started this whole thing. And, I think it's really improving, and Missy Price is doing an amazing job, and it's going in the right direction.
You're on mute, but yeah, I agree with what Gene was saying. I think, one, the girls' side is growing, right? It's ultimately about 2 years behind where we are with the boys.
Yeah.
And I think that you'll start to see that more from an inter point of view, where the girls will start to be more involved, and we'll have a similar pathway to that we have on the boys' side very soon. But yeah, we did have 3, I believe it was 3 girls down there with the 2010s over this year just gone. And then, hopefully next year we'll have the same opportunities for those 2011s. It'll be the 29s. Then obviously if we have any of the high school girls at that age group, but
yeah, and I think that's where we were talking about, like when we think about a club, right? So we think about inner and the girls side and going forward. We want to get those young kids involved, but those first stages, those first young kids are the kids that grow through all those programs, right? So you go from U13 to U15 to U19, and we hopefully grow that process and continue to do that. And it's a great partnership. It's a great partnership to have. It expands our pools, and when you look at USL Academy play, it's a pool of players. It's and then you get into roster selections and things like that, which is very similar to the USLW level. I mean, I coached at that level, and I had a pool of 28 players, but only 18 can ever be on a roster. And I actually only traveled 16. So, I mean, when you look at that, having those competitive outlets early and getting people prepared for those types of competitive outlets it's very, very good for those kids.
Yeah, those numbers that you just said are exactly the same what we were doing at the U13 and U14. Numbers that, that they want us to play with 18, we go with 16. We try and have our roster size around 22, but we will stretch it. But ultimately, if you add all the players that we have and all the players that AC have, technically our roster is 44 kids because they have 22, we have 20. So, and that's only our top team, not including second and third teams. But I also would like to get a side view from someone who has a brother playing in the league, right? And that could be an interesting point of view, right, Az?
Yeah, no, my brother is 24. He played for Leon when it was Everton America. He's trained with Leon for many years. He was at Quinnipiac when Leon was at Quinnipiac, so we kind of have that family connection. After Quinnipiac, he went to go on trial with a bunch of different clubs like Rochester Rhinos and Memphis 901, bunch of championship sides, and then landed in Greenville for the Greenville Triumph. This is his first season starting, but his second season total. It's an interesting kind of experience, and from my perspective, being the older brother, who's also the shortest one in my family, having a brother who's 6'1" and a goalkeeper that's a professional soccer player is very interesting. It's unique in the sense that we've been playing soccer our entire lives, and it wasn't too many years ago that we would just walk up to our high school and just hit balls to each other for, I don't know, 3 hours at a time, whatever it was. And now this is his job. This is what he does day in and day out. And they're actually fighting for a playoff spot now. They're in 5th place. So it's a very professional organization, and not just USL League One, USL as a whole. And what they're doing, trying to promote, promotion and relegation, trying to make that a thing inside the US, is it's only going to increase popularity in the United States, and it's only going to make soccer more competitive, which is completely necessary for the growth of soccer in the United States. But as far as my brother is concerned, hopefully we'll be able to get him on this podcast soon. I think he's done late October, something like that. So maybe I can bribe him with, an ice cream or two to come and bring him in. Maybe that won't work. Maybe I need something monetary. But but yeah, it's very interesting. And I'm very proud of my brother. And I'm sure you'll see if you watch Greenville Triumph, he's the announcer's favorite player. Always, they're always saying his name, because I don't know why. He's pretty ugly, so I don't know why they keep handing over it.
It is a cool experience. I know I used to coach quite a lot with Aaron. I think it was a Thursdays throughout the winter, and he'd be like, "Oh, look at this," and he'd show me on his phone like like the practice was finishing and kids were leaving, like ESPN, and he was just watching his brother play. I'm a single child. Obviously don't have those connections, but yeah, it was a cool thing just to see, hey, it's someone's brother's playing on ESPN. And I think from a club point of view, with Leon and Marty's background with the U19s, Aaron's background, obviously having it from like a family member in it, Gene's background from actually managing and coaching and being in the day-to-day around it, I think we pretty much have everything ticked. You know what I mean? You know, we got a lot of good coaches, different backgrounds, different strengths. So, you know, if it is something part of this USL that you want to get involved in, I do believe we've got the right staff here. And now as we start to grow, it's also an opportunity for our coaches to grow and grow along with the USL. For me, that was one of the biggest tournaments that I've ever coached in, and I was showing up day two, obviously, because I was a day late. But you know, there was probably 30 fields at that one complex in Tampa.
That complex is gigantic.
Yeah, and I was showing up there, and
20,
everything was
25.
beautiful. The grass was lovely. You know, trainers are there. Every game's being recorded. The sideline was like a calm place to be. You know, it's not like
they give you pennies and balls, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
You
got to be creative with the amount of cones you get. But
that is true. That is true.
You know, I was trying to do a warm up for Coach Anthony. I had like 6 cones, but we made it work. But I do think it's something that is helping the club. But I think before we kind of we cut the podcast, but I do want to talk about a question that I get a lot, which is, you know, how can my son be involved more in these environments, or how does my daughter get selected for the regional groups? And for me, it's quality of practice. You know what I mean? It's difficult at my team's age groups because one day they just want to come in, blow off some steam. They want to be kids. They want to be 8-year-olds. But ultimately, we are trying to coach these guys to get them ready to be, hopefully, the you know, Aaron's brother down the line playing in the USL and doing those type of things. So I think just so parents can evaluate, one of the big things that Coach Anthony Howard, who's the AC Connecticut director, said, he had one really big slide on his presentation that he shared with most of the families in the U13, U14 age group, which was, how do I get identified as a USL player? And number one was just comfortable on the ball. And that is no matter what position. So, you know, if you're listening to this podcast and you go, oh, my son's a goalkeeper, he just gets the ball and smashes it, it's not going to help us. You know, I mean, he's got to be able to switch the play. He's got to be comfortable off his line, kind of playing as that sweeper, building play. Same with the centre back, same, you know, as we move through the positions. And also another one that he told that I thought was pretty good, because a lot of parents don't really see the bigger picture on this one, is if your kid plays striker for Inter, he might play left midfield for the USL team, because we might have someone else in that who's a little bit further ahead of him. So don't just like pigeonhole your child and be like, okay, he only plays right midfield, because that's really going to limit what they can do. So I think from me is your son comfortable on the ball? And 2, you know, are they willing to play these other positions? And I know something that Aaron's pretty passionate about, but the quality of practice, right, has to be high, and you've got to be one of those kids driving the quality higher than lowering the standard and just saying, oh, I did this in a game.
I think to piggyback on that, it's, you know, yes, your quality of practice has to be high. Yes, you have to be a good player. But the thing is when you get into those levels, and whether it's the girls' regional level, USL 2, you know, League 1 championship, and I used to say it to my USLW players all the time, there's no bad players here. There's nobody that like you can look at and be like, well, that kid can't dribble. Like they're all going to be the top of their teams wherever they come from. And at the USLW level, you're talking about not only the top of teams, but the top Division I athletes. Like, you know, Clemson, like my team was a collection of some of the best Division I players. And, you know, even the Division II players, like I'll give a shout out to one of my USLW players now, Sydney Jimmo, who was a Vermonter. She's leading the league nation in goals right now. Like there's no players out there that they all train hard. They all have the mentality of we're here to work. We're here to get better. They have understanding that needs to be developed. And I think that's one of the big things when we talk about quality of training. What is your decision making like? You know, you can be a great midfielder. And to your point, Tom, like I could be great on the ball, right? But if every one of my passes goes negative, that's probably not going to get me onto a USL team. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never turn the ball over, but I'm never really taking any risks either.
Yeah, I never pass forward. Yeah.
So that's a problem as well. So, you know, when you start to go up into the funnel, right, and you talk about like, you know, where Aaron's brother is and stuff like that, we're not really separating players by quality of technique anymore because everybody has those foundational techniques. Everybody can pass the ball. Everybody can receive a ball. Everybody can move. It's what's the quality of your decision making? How are you going to affect the game? And maybe some intangible factors like are you just like, you know, again, I look at USL2 team. Like we had a kid who, you know, he was 6'4" center forward who could just move like he was 5'5". That's a dangerous player. Like he wasn't particularly useful in any other avenue, but if we had to play direct at the end of the game, that's a very useful player to have on the field.
Right.
So, you know, those are the things that I think you have to look at. And, you know, and again, mentality is a big one. Like, do you want to be at this level, or are you just like, oh, I want to be here because this is apparently the top level?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Mentality is massive. And, you know, you see some of the best players in the world, and they're not just technical, they're not just good at decision making. They come to win and they come to train and progress every single day.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're talking about the USL pre-academy, USLW now, but there's definitely a way that we can relate this to our sessions that we have and the teams that we have now. You know, if you want to be selected for these programs, if you want to be acknowledged and if you want to progress, if you want to win games, it can't just be something like, oh, you know, I'm going to soccer today. Let's just go shoot in the goal and kick each other and all this stuff. And I'm not saying that everybody does that, but we have to be, you know, we have to take certain training sessions seriously, especially now within the Zone 1 Academy. And then if you want to eventually be able to go to Tampa with the USL, you know, it's not just how you're evaluated and how well you do on the weekend. That's a very small fraction in our selection process. That's a very small fraction of your progression. Most of what you do as a soccer player is in training. We have 3 sessions a week. We have 1 game most of the time on the weekends. So what you do in training directly affects what happens in the game. If your passes in training are 5 yards to the right, if they're to someone's chest instead of their feet, it all, you know, it's all a factor. You know, I'm sure that Gene, you can add on that in your training sessions. I'm sure that, you know, there's no real compromise for, you know, a bad pass when it should, with no pressure, it should be to someone's feet.
There isn't. And I think like those technique elements are so very important. Like there's certain things you can hide. I think, you know, you can be a player that might not be the best dribbler. You can be a player that might not be the fastest kid. But if you can't play a ball where it needs to be played, whether that's to feet, whether that's space, whether you have the range, you can never hide that on the field. Like that, like I'm going to immediately notice you. I'm going to be like, oh, that kid can't hit a ball more than 10 yards. And I think those elements and that demand, and that's the other thing, players need to demand. And I've had the opportunity to play in Europe and things like that. And it's, you know, one of my favorite American phrases is my bad. Like, oh, my bad. And it's just kind of this, it always has irritated me. I got to be honest, because it just kind of shakes off a mistake versus you owning that mistake of like, hey, sorry, Aaron, my technique's not good enough to get you the ball 15 yards away accurately. So I'm going to make you work a little bit harder for it. And I think that's what kids have to understand. It's like, you know, yeah, don't take, you know, again, it's a mistake and mistakes are going to happen. But at the same time, know what your weaknesses are and come to training to improve those weaknesses. Don't just go to training and go through the motions. Like if you know, hey, I don't have a weak foot, develop that weak foot. Try to go to training and be like, okay, this is the time when I can actually develop these skill sets. This is the time where it's safe for me to make mistakes versus trying to implement that in a game. Like come to training with a purpose.
Yeah. No, that's well said. Definitely well said. And as a player myself, and Tom can, you know, add on that, it's so important. Take pride in what you do in training. Take pride in the passes. Take pride in contributing to the team, not just in the game on the weekends, but, you know, maybe even if it's a case of raising the level during the session, you know, forcing somebody to be competitive instead of, you know, complacent that they made a bad pass or lost the ball. It's okay if you lose it. If it's okay if you make mistakes, but we have to learn, have the mentality to go and get it back and want the ball. So
no, I think, going forward up into the higher levels too, when, if you have players that want to play in college or want to play USL2 or Championship or League One or USLW, things like that, I think you really need to know that there's going to be times like we're going to give you opportunities, right? As coaches, especially here at Inter, like on the girls' side for the regional program, I will always give you an opportunity. Like if you're doing well, yeah, we'll give you an opportunity with the regional team. It's your job to take advantage of that opportunity. Right. Don't go into that and just be like, oh, I'm just going to do what I normally do. No, you stepped up a level. Now you have to step up. Your game has to step up a level. You have to do things better than you did before and with more quality than you did before. And you have to your point, Aaron, like take pride really in what you do because everybody else does. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest piece of it.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I say to my kids all the time, like, don't be afraid to be the best player, because if you're going to be the best player, it's going to drive the next one to be the best player. And then all of a sudden we have a very, very, very good group. Where if you're driving the standard down by goofing around or just being silly, and obviously, again, we always keep in mind the age of the kids. But if we have that from U9 through to U10, it's just going to be we're going to be able to achieve a lot more with all the kids. Obviously the kids develop at different speeds, but if everyone's being challenged, obviously the physicality is difficult to manage. We can't tell a kid to stop growing or start growing, but if we can manipulate that environment and kids buy into it and they drive the group forward, then I think it's only going to help the whole entire club and also the teams and the coaches and the individuals and the parents, because everyone's going through it. It's just difficult at the younger age groups to manage that. And that's why we have Coach Leon doing the pre-team, because some kids just aren't ready for that environment yet. And then some kids are. And that's kind of ultimately the hardest thing about our jobs, right? Trying to coach all these kids the similar way, but they're all on different journeys and different development pathways based on the type of person they are. So, I do believe we've got, like I said, great pathways, great structure, great coaches, great facilities. I know we was talking before, Aaron was saying about, there's no excuses for sending a pass that hits someone in the throat or in the face. That's also why we put a $1.4 million turf field in, because unfortunately 2 years ago that could happen. You know what I mean? You could get one of those passes and you'd be like, yeah, that was 100% the field. But now we're not going to have that issue. You know what I mean? We are going to be pushing these kids to really hone in on the technical excellence is how we like to word it as part of the USL. You've got to be technically excellent, but also you've got to put a lot of work in at home as well. You're not going to get there from just doing the 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week that we might see you. Can you get yourself to SPU? Can you get yourself, watching videos on YouTube and recreating them in the garage? If you've got a sibling, go recreate it with them. If not, then you was like myself as a kid, I would just have a wall. I just find a wall and pass against the wall or get to practice. And one thing that annoys me the most, and I am going off on a tangent, is when kids get to practice and just smash the ball at an open goal. Like, there's so many things that can make me better if I have 5 minutes to do it than just smashing the ball at an open goal. Like, play soccer tennis with a friend. You know what I mean? We've got nets, we've got some barriers. Do that. It's going to improve your control. Work on your long passing instead of just smashing a ball. And usually,
it's funny that you say that too, because one of the first things, like USLW trials, we like team of coaches out there, and I used to tell my coaches, don't say anything for the first 15 minutes of this trial. Yeah. And so you watch kids walk on the field and see how they, like, what do they do to warm up? Like, what is their mentality and things like that? And obviously U9, U10, U11, U12, like, we don't really, like, there has to be some guidance there, but like, those are things that players, if you learn at a young age, that's a mentality that like other coaches at the professional level will look at. Like, Are you just doing nothing? Are you walking around? Like, are you the guy? Like, so what is your mentality when you get on the field? Like, are there things that you can do? And I think the other piece of it is when you do get an opportunity, know that it's not always going to work out for you. And there's always going to be another opportunity. As long as you keep working, like if you get into the pool and maybe you don't get selected for a game day, that doesn't mean you're never going to get selected. That means, hey, there's things that you have to do better. And again, just try to figure out what those things are. Go talk to your coaches, figure it out. Like, hey, what do I need to work on? What do I need to do? And I think if you really try to improve those elements, you'll get selected more often.
No, I think, not to take your job here, Aaron, but I think that's a perfect way to end it, right? I think what Gene's just shared with us there is spot on. You know, we have good enough coaches to offer you feedback. Opportunities will come. You've got to take them. If you need information or advice, we talked about it. We have coaches at all levels that can help. And, you know, hopefully that was useful information from somebody who's done it in Gene, somebody who's got family members doing it and also coached at it, and somebody who has to find out what players' FIFA numbers are that isn't part of EA Sports. So,
yeah, no, that's a great insight on all accounts. I'm going to work to see if I can get my brother on here and give a firsthand player's perspective on the USL and how someone can go from playing town soccer to academy to college and then onto the professional pathway. So
maybe that's when Leon jumps back in, because Leon
I'm sure that he would be interested in joining that.
Let me know when that happens, because I have a player that played for me that went to that club on the women's side. So maybe we can get him.
Oh, there you go.
The Liberty?
Both sides of it. Yep.
Oh, there you go. All right. So thank you very much for listening. This is Aaron, Tom Robinson, and Gene Smith signing off from the Interview Podcast. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Interview Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Facebook and Instagram, and check out our website, www.interctfc.com.